Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Thursday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Dave Percy, and I'll be hosting the show today. Up first on the warning graphic, we've got, we'll start here in the southeast coast. There's a winter storm warning out beginning at 9 p.m. Thursday evening, and that will remain out through 4 p.m. Friday afternoon, and that's for the system approaching the area currently. That should bring snow into the northern panhandle here tonight or during the evening hours, and looking at anywhere from 6 to 10 inches of snow to fall during the period of the warning, which again is out until 4 p.m. Monday. Heaviest amounts here to the north, and then on down to the south. Most of the moisture is up to the north, and then there is still some higher snowfall levels down here to the south. So the amounts, snow type, will become more wet and heavy. And so we've got advisories there toward the east, over toward Hyder and Stewart and those areas. And again, it's really going to be elevation dependent down here. And it's a pretty good bet you'll get some significant snow up here over the northern areas. Winter weather advisory for snow back to the Yakutat area, looking for about 3 to 6 inches falling as that system moves on by tonight. Otherwise, up to the north, you've got a widespread area of winter storm warnings out here for the Brooks Range back to the western Arctic coast. And again, these will be diminishing or ending from west to east here as the system pushes eastward. And we've got winter weather advisories again for snow here over the eastern interior, right on down to the Alaska Range, looking for anywhere from 4 to 6 inches, give or take, in these areas. And back here to the northwest, so gusting 35 mile per hour in the winds. So snow and blowing snow to go along with that area, or to go along with the heavier snow. And then out St. Lawrence Island way, high wind warning out there for this evening. Winds expected to pick up from the north and northwest and gusts as high as 60 miles per hour during the evening hours tonight, and then diminishing after midnight. So not a prolonged period of strong winds coming up, but they will be kicking up this evening and then before they fall back down. Looking at the satellite imagery, here's the band of clouds associated with all the snowfall moving across south central Alaska today and really all the way back up to the north slope in the eastern Arctic coast. Kind of movement is slower up in this area, where it's moving a little more quickly down here along the North Gulf Coast areas to the south. In advance of that, looks like some clear skies over the southeast coast, and then back to the west here, more cloudiness, but clearing out over Cook Inlet, lee side of the Alaska Range. See some sunshine there down toward Kodiak, and that working all the way up into northern Cook Inlet and possibly the Susitna Valley. Another batch of clouds here exiting the Pribilofs with that west-northwest flow coming across the Bering Sea, actually kind of enhancing there and then dissipating out. Really not a lot of organized cloudiness back out to the west until you get way out to the west there toward the Komodorsky Islands. Got basically ridging continuing here over the Bering Sea areas. You can see quite a zone of relatively cloud-free skies, especially at the higher levels there from the eastern Aleutians across the Pribilofs. And on the chart today, we've got one low center back to the northwest here, keeping the snow in over the Kuskokwim Valley areas. Milder temperatures yet, with rain and snow reported over the inland areas of Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta into Bristol Bay, with just flat-out rain along the coastline. A few showers lingering over the Pribilof Islands, but increasing northwest winds here, getting pretty gusty, anywhere from 25 to 35, possibly gusts as high as 50 through the channeled areas of the Alaska Peninsula. But that pattern will be shifting east, so places like Kodiak Island will be seeing the increase in the winds tonight, as well as northeast Bristol Bay and up along the western Alaska Range. Then we've got weak low in the Gulf of Alaska here, rain and snow there, but a widespread area of snow currently occurring, again ending across Cook Inlet here and the Susitna Valley, but snow across the Copper River Basin, snowfall northward, all of the eastern interior right out to the Arctic coast there. Some areas of blowing snow, some gusty winds, but generally just a widespread area through here. And again, looking for as high as 6 to 10 inches of snow across the Brooks Range tonight. And then this area will be shifting eastward. And for tonight, we've got a low center developing right in this area, so south-southeast flow ahead of that. Of course, that's going to be the warmer air there. And the rain-snow line, again, kind of, I'll put it right about from Petersburg on out to possibly Sitka, and to the north, definitely in the snow to the north there, those snowfall amounts back toward Yakutat, and more of a rain condition, especially at the lower elevations down across the southern panhandle. Back to the west here, again, tightening gradient, so northwest winds possibly gusting 60, even 65 miles per hour through the Aleutian Range passes, and increase in the winds Kodiak Island. And then those winds will, as I mentioned, will pick up tonight across St. Lawrence Island this evening, and then rapidly diminish after midnight. In fact, by late tonight, you can see really coming down on the gradient there as that shifts more in toward Kotzebue Sound. It'll be still snow, areas of blowing snow, but this whole area diminishing, bulk of the moisture now shifting into western, or up here into Canada, and now the focus will be down toward the southeast coast. High pressure building in behind that here over the Bering Sea, and actually extending all the way up to another center up there toward the eastern, or over the Russian Far East. So that's going to direct most of the moisture northward around that and drive it right into Russia there. But some of this already beginning to appear to be slipping eastward a little bit there, but should be mostly north of the Aleutians. Look for the wind and rain to increase late tonight. That's mostly for Shimmy and Attu. Could still see some isolated light showers over the eastern Aleutians there with diminishing winds, and then windy conditions here. Any moisture will be on the Alaska, or on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, clearing to the south, mostly clear VFR Sand Point, of course, up to Kodiak Island. And then moving ahead to tomorrow for Friday, still this low center off the coast, again, south to southeast winds, rain and snow, becoming all snow up to the north there. And again, really touch and go on where the rain and snow line will be. But back to the west, meaning the cold air. So snowfall will be over here for south central Alaska, maybe a few flurries along the mountains. Fairly cloudy skies, excuse me, and northwest winds, quite windy there, gusts 50 miles an hour, Kodiak Island. Now diminishing over Bristol Bay and the Alaska Peninsula, ridging here, slowly moving eastward along the coast. So not a bad day here over the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. And up in the central interior, mostly cloudy skies, areas light snow and flurries. Look for the clearing to be on the increase as you head northward there, but still even along the Arctic coast could be some areas of light snow, as well as back up over the northwest interior. And out to the west, again, most of that getting directed on up to the north. But on Saturday now, that takes a pretty good jog to the east here, with the ridging developing back farther to the west. So that's going to drive in much warmer air. Increase in the winds, wind coming into the southwest coast here, into Bristol Bay, the Alaska Peninsula, on out to about Atka, and then behind the front, it'll improve dramatically toward Adak on out to Shimia, and a rain-snow condition changing to rain with snow persisting up to the northwest, otherwise clear and cold, under basically the influence of high pressure, 1,025 millibar high there, near Eagle or Old Crow, with clear skies, cool conditions all the way down to the North Gulf Coast, channeled north winds through the Copper River Delta, locally Prince William Sound. Pretty windy up here over the northern panhandle. Out of the north and northeast, maybe a risk of a little bit of light snow, but nothing heavy. And then the main precipitation area will be down to the south as some of that moisture continues to work up into the southern panhandle, but the main low center down toward the Queen Charlotte Islands. And moving on to the forecast lows for Friday morning, anywhere from 10 to maybe 15 below here over the upper Yukon Valley areas. Looks like right around 0 for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. Otherwise, single numbers back to the west. Cooler temperatures south central Alaska down into the teens, and down towards 0 for the Copper River Basin. Otherwise, we're looking at lower 20s over the northern southeast coast to upper 20s down over the southern areas, but the outer coastline hanging right around the freeze point. Mid-30s there, Kodiak Island, and upper 20s back across southwest interior to near 30 there for St. Lawrence Island. And out over the Aleutians, upper 30s to lower 40s, including the Pribilofs. High temperatures for tomorrow, staying a shade below zero up here over the northeast interior, but 5 to 10 above for the eastern Arctic coast, teens to the west, and milder here over the southwest with highs in the lower 30s to upper 30s right along the coast, lower 40s to the Pribilofs down to the Alaska Peninsula. Unalaska should reach 45, about the same at AKwx, as well as Shimia. And then we've got 20s, south central Alaska to mid-30s here, North Gulf Coast. On down the Panhandle, lower 40s south to upper 20s in the north. Moving on to low temperatures for Saturday morning, well below zero, big drop here now. Looks like 25 to 30 below zero, possibly here for the upper Yukon Valley in those colder areas with definitely well below zero, dropping maybe to 10 below Copper River Basin. Anywhere from 0 to 15 south central Alaska, down to 31 for Kodiak, and then keeping mild here along the southwest coast with lower 30s to around 30 there for St. Lawrence Island, but much milder there. Pribilofs lows 41. Below zero, eastern Arctic coast. Actually, the entire stretch of the coastline there, 5 below to 5 above, maybe down to 10 below. And then the Panhandle, upper 30s south to mid-30s north. And then for Saturday afternoon highs, we've got staying well below zero up over the northeast, and even portions of the Arctic coast. Otherwise, the mildest areas will be here along the southwest coast, as well as the Alaska Peninsula, with highs approaching 50 degrees here for Alaska and the Alaska Peninsula.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving into the flying weather with, looks like a lot of IFR here along and west and north of the Alaska Range, on up to the northeast, and another band here along the central and east or western Brooks Range. Marginal VFR here all along the southwest there from the Seward Peninsula, a break right through here, and then a massive area of IFR all the way out covering the much of the Bering Sea out here in the Aleutians. IFR all along the southeast coast here, but breaking out down south, and not too bad here over the Gulf of Alaska. Then by afternoon, a little improvement from the IFR over northern Cook Inlet early, becoming marginal. Not much change along the Alaska Range. IFR with a low on the north side. IFR central southern southeast coast, and areas of marginal VFR up here to the north and mostly to the northwest. And this huge area of IFR now slowly advancing eastward along the Bering and the Aleutians. For the Saturday morning forecast, that makes landfall late overnight on Friday night, and then slowly pushes inland here across the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, not quite reaching the Seward Peninsula, starting out rather pretty good VFR there, but IFR continues out over the Aleutians, slipping on into the Alaska Peninsula, marginal VFR along and north of the Alaska Range, VFR south, VFR to the north, all the way up to the Arctic coast there, with the exception of some marginal VFR hanging around the central coast. Areas of IFR there through the central Panhandle. And then for Saturday afternoon, that all shifts down to the southeast there with improving conditions up to the north, becoming VFR. Good VFR here, Gulf of Alaska, south central Alaska, all the way up through the interior to the eastern Arctic coast. Not so much there on the central coast. IFR back out here to the west continues to inch its way eastward. Looks like now spilling into the Kuskokwim Valley in the afternoon, all of Bristol Bay, the Alaska Peninsula, and the Fox Islands there, and northward through the Bering Strait to the northwest coast, but now improving back to the west there. See some VFR breaking out over AKwx on back towards Shimia. Passes Anatuvik tomorrow. Looks marginal at times throughout the day, as well as Adigan, marginal VFR on Friday for either approach. Lake Clark and Merrill, occasional or mostly marginal VFR throughout the day. For Rainy, starting out IFR and then becoming marginal. For Wendy, IFR, especially on the northern approach. Isabel, IFR, becoming marginal VFR. And for Mentasta, marginal VFR becoming VFR. So some pretty good improvement there. And for Tanita, improving trend throughout the day, lowest conditions in the morning, better in the afternoon. And that same trend with Portage, although Portage may go VFR by mid to late morning. And then for Chilkoot and White, IFR gradually possibly becoming marginal VFR late in the afternoon. And the freezing levels here at the surface, still up around St. Lawrence Island out there over the northern Bering, down along the southwest coast is for Friday morning, and then back along the North Gulf Coast, cutting off to the southeast, and with the upper level ridging out here to the west. That's where the highest freezing levels are, 10,000 feet plus here over the central and western Aleutians, sliding on back down to about 2,000 to 4,000 feet here across the Alaska Peninsula south of St. Matthew Island. Moving on to icing, possibility out here west, but that's up above 12,000 feet with the high freezing levels. Best chance of any icing in the state tomorrow will be down here over the Panhandle. Could be some considerable moderate here to the south, all that above about 4,000 feet. And looking at the jet stream, upper level low dropping down in the northeast Gulf tomorrow, and northwest winds, again at jet stream level here about 160 knots. So colder air coming in over the interior is coming southward there, and the jet now south of the Panhandle, but you can see it arcing way up over the western Bering Sea with that ridging. And for 9,000 feet, south winds 50 knots here over the far western Aleutians, coming up and around 35, the Alaska Peninsula size 50 knots here, Kodiak Island, and the Bristol Bay area, back to the Alaska Peninsula, or the Alaska Range at about 40 knots, 15 to 20 over the northeast interior, 3,000 feet, strongest winds right through here coming out of the northwest across Kodiak and the western Alaska Range, south 35 for the southern Panhandle, and 25 to 30 coming around that ridge axis, but the strongest winds there back toward the western Aleutians. Turbulence-wise, light to isolated moderate chop, central Aleutians, moderate chop here, Kodiak Island, right up along the western Alaska Range, and across much of the Panhandle looks pretty turbulent.
Queen Cassiopeia.
Welcome to Stargazers. I'm James Albury, director of the Kika Silva Pla Planetarium in Gainesville, Florida.
And I'm Dehne Regis, astronomer for the Cincinnati Observatory, and we're here to help you find your way around the sky.
It's that time of year again when our old friend, the Big Dipper, gives up its role as an easy early evening indicator of north. Because if you happen to live toward the south, the Big Dipper is barely visible above the northern horizon in early evening.
But fear not, my friends, the Big Dipper's position high above the North Star is replaced by a fascinating ancient constellation, Cassiopeia the Queen, and she has quite a story. Let's show you. Okay, if you go out any night around 9 p.m., you'll see the 5 bright stars of Cassiopeia, which, if we connect with imaginary lines, trace out the letter M. But you might ask yourself, how could anyone imagine seeing a queen in this simple M shape?
Well, around 2,000 years ago, the ancient Greeks had no problem identifying this modern M as the queen named Cassiopeia. And if we speed up time a few hours to about 6 a.m., maybe you can imagine a queen sitting majestically on her throne. And if we use one extra star in this constellation and draw lines between it and the middle star of the M, we have the seat of a throne. The 2 stars above it make up the back of the throne, and the 2 additional lines make up the legs of the throne. And all you have to do is imagine someone like a great queen sitting in it.
But as everyone knows, because our Earth rotates on its axis every 24 hours, the stars change their positions in the sky, circling endlessly around the North Star. And at 6 a.m. any morning this week, Queen Cassiopeia sits upright very nicely on her throne. But as the hours go by, she slowly wheels around the North Star, even as the Earth is turning today. So that by evening time, once again, Cassiopeia would have to be wearing an extra strong seatbelt to keep her from falling off her queenly throne.
But why, you might ask, would our ancestors want to see a favorite queen of theirs who was said to be the most beautiful woman of her time in such a precarious position? Well, it is precisely because of this ever-changing position of Cassiopeia's throne that she was placed in the sky in the first place. You see, Cassiopeia was placed in the heavens as an object lesson against personal vanity.
20 centuries ago, the story was told that Cassiopeia was not only exceptionally beautiful, but exceptionally vain, and that one day she made the dreadful mistake of boasting that she was even more beautiful than the Nereids, the sea nymphs who were considered to be the hottest stuff of their time. Well, they complained to their father Poseidon, the god of the sea, and he condemned Queen Cassiopeia to ride endlessly around the North Star on her throne, sometimes comfortably right side up, and then later on uncomfortably upside down, where she'd have to hang on for dear life.
This precarious position was designed as a punishment for Cassiopeia, and ever since, mere mortals have known that physical beauty always comes with a price. Something that Dehne and I know all too well, right, Dehne?
That's right, James. Now, of course, we wouldn't want Cassiopeia to think this show was all about her, but let's zoom in for a closer look at her stars.
At night, Cassiopeia stands really high in the northern sky. Her 5 semi-bright stars make a noticeable M-shaped pattern.
The 3 brightest stars make a neat triangle, and sometimes if you're viewing from a city, you may have a tough time seeing more than these 3 stars. Their names are Kaf, Snider, and Sid. They are all about as bright as a North Star, which is not too far away.
The fainter stars in the M shape of Cassiopeia are called Rukba and Sejin. You may have to squint a bit to see Sejin, but if you can see all 5 stars, you'll know for sure you found her. So, get outside and look for the vain Queen Cassiopeia.
And her outline of 5 stars making an M shape in the night sky. She's up there if you keep looking up.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Sea ice analysis here for Thursday. A lot of ice now, as it has been here along the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, still thinning out toward the central coast there, and then just some narrow areas along the west side into Kotzebue Sound and down here along the Yukon Delta coastline. And with those increasing northwest winds that will be coming through this evening and tonight, some of this might get kind of compressed back or even melt with the wave action coming into it. So really not much of an increase occurring out here. And then up here to the north, just a gradual increase expected over the next 4 or 5 days during the forecast period. And for the north side here, or the north coast, we've got gale warnings east 35 knots, and look for those gusts to pick up to 50 knots as the winds back around to the southeast, and then diminishing small craft advisories down here along the south coast. Southeast 30, gust 40, Clarence Strait, northeast, gust 40 knots there for Stevens Passage, and northerlies 30, gust 45 for Northern Canal. Then on Saturday, almost a storm, but not quite there. North 45 knots, Northern Canal, that falls back to 25. Same direction for Stevens Passage, southeast 20 for Clarence Strait. 15-knot winds now on the south coast, seas 10 feet, and down under gale force on the north coast, but still hanging on to those 45-knot gusts. And for Prince William Sound, northwest 30 knots tomorrow, north 30 for all of the North Gulf Coast, 8 to 9 foot seas. Barren Islands, northwest 40, increase to 45 knots for Kachemak Bay, northerlies 15 to 20 for Cook Inlet. And for the next day, Saturday, north 15, Cook Inlet, down to 25 knots, Kachemak Bay. Minimum gales for the Barren Islands, and about 20 to 25 from the north here along the coast. Prince William Sound now coming down to 20 knots with 3-foot seas. Kodiak Island, northwest winds 40 to 45 knots, blowing right across the area there. And look for higher gusts here coming out of those bays on the east side from Sitkinak to Castle Cape. 45 knots out of the northwest, 16-foot seas. And then coming down to under gale force of the Alaska Peninsula, northwest 30, 35 knots for Bristol Bay. And for Saturday, swinging around to southeast at 20, and we've got west-southwest, 20 to 25 knots here for the peninsula. Kodiak Island hanging on to some gales here on the east side there, 35 knots with 10-foot seas. And the eastern Aleutians, westerlies to northwest or so at about 20 to 25, and then becoming more south-southwest and picking up to about 25 to 30 here over the central Aleutians. Southerlies at 30 knots all the way out to Shimia. And then for Saturday, northwest, 30 knots there for the western zones. Gale force westerlies now for AKwx, and that takes more of a turn to the southwest as you get over toward Unalaska Island with minimum gales in the forecast. These running 12 to 15 feet. And for the southwest coast, northwest 25 to 30, good for small craft advisory, seas as high as 12 feet, and then back down to 20 for St. Lawrence Island. 15-knot winds over the Bering Sea, Pribilof, St. Matthew Island. Big increase in those on the next day here. Saturday, 40-knot winds there, south 30 along the coast. And for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, light east 15, 20 knots west side. Kind of a variable wind direction going on here, 25 knots on down to Wales. And then for Saturday, it becomes a little more uniform here. Let's call it southeast 25, Wales up to Cape Beaufort on up, east 30 knots, 7-foot seas, then falling back down to 15 there for the central coast. And light easterlies at 10 knots for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. And for tonight, again, snow moving eastward here, so winter storm warnings that are out will be ending from west to east here, especially back to the northwest there. Pretty good winds here coming in across St. Lawrence Island, high wind warning out this evening, gusts 60 miles per hour, then they'll dramatically diminish on toward tomorrow morning with strong gusty winds out of the northwest. Again, could see gusts as high as 65 miles per hour maybe here for the Alaska Peninsula. Winds on the increase, Kodiak, winter storm warning, northern southeast coast, 6 to 10 inches, 9 p.m. to 4 p.m. Monday, and winter weather advisories around the greater Fairbanks area for 4 to 6 inches. And then for tomorrow, you can see everything on a improving trend, lighter snows persisting along the Alaska Peninsula. All kinds of weather going on over the Panhandle. Best chance of rain down to the south. Heaviest snow up to the north. Everyone else in between. Gusty northwest winds here. Colder temperatures, somewhat cooler temperatures. Kodiak Island, next system out west. Pushing eastward Saturday and driving up another surge of warm air with rain over the southwest interior. Clear and cold in the east.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.